Hello and welcome to episode 184 of The Imperial Truth. My name's Greg. Joining me as ever is Mr. Howard. Hello, Howard.
Hello, Greg. You all right? You doing okay?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you. It shouldn't, but it continually surprises me every time you say, I keep thinking what episode number it is. And these are high numbers. They've crept up, haven't they?
It is
But yeah,
creeping.
all good over here, thank you. All good. They're my amusement aside.
Fantastic. Before we go anywhere, let's talk Element Games. So whether it's Age of Sigmar 4, whether it's Dwarfs for Old World, Space Marines even, Titans, paints, airbrushes, Daylight Company lights, board
I haven't mentioned them.
games,
Yeah.
tools, tokens, whatever you need for gaming, you can probably find it at Element, and they have fantastic service and very competitive prices. So not only that, they support the show, so you can use our link, which shows them that it's working on for their part, and also puts a bit of money into the show to pay for a few little bits. So
They
there we go.
very helpfully, as a demonstration of their helpfulness as a service, they helped out some friends of mine who were looking to get me a gift for my recent 40th birthday. And I was very kindly given one of those daylight lamps you were talking about.
When
They
was
do
your
one of the daylight
40th?
companies.
When was your 40th birthday?
That's just gone a week ago.
Well, happy
In the
birthday! Because I
middle of
can't remember
July.
if I
Thank you.
can't remember if I knew about it or not.
I like to keep these things quiet to see as a thing. But yeah,
You're a
it was
youngster.
yeah, whippersnapper over here. But yeah, that little milestone has rocked around, and yeah, I was very kindly given that, and that was from Element, and they helped out people who didn't know what they were looking for necessarily, but had an idea. And Element were very extremely helpful and courteous, as one might expect, with helping them out with gifts like that, and which has always been my experience as well. So there's quite a lot to be said for that. I think personally.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't get a 40th birthday. Happened in COVID.
Oh,
So I was planning this big
yucks!
trip up to Nottingham or something. And bless my missus, she did a fantastic job. But it was me and her sat in a house with a massive cake.
I mean,
But
there
there
are
we go.
considerably worse ways to spend the day,
Yeah,
but not quite what you had in mind,
a
was
lot
it? Yeah.
worse. No, exactly. Hey ho, such is life. There we go. So yeah, Element Games doing all that. Yes, I don't know if I've added it to the links actually, but Artist Opus as well.
Oh
That's
yes,
all part
yes.
of that. So yes, I will maybe try and put the link in, but there's a specific Artist Opus link. But I can you get Artist Opus through the main Element website anyway?
Oh yes, definitely.
You can, can't you? So yes, all the Artist Opus stuff as
Same like
well.
they. I mean, Element continue to be kind of exclusive for a bunch of things. Like the Cult of Paint stuff is airbrushes and things are through them. Artist Opus, I'm
Yeah, I mean,
actually probably a bit more widespread, but Monument Hobby stuff is all them exclusive. So I've been trying to get my hands on the Rogue Hobbies pack that was put together by Monument Paint, the paint range put together by Louise. It looks rather tasty, but sold out because it's very popular both here and on the other side of the pond. So yeah, waiting for that to come back into Element, but they do stock some exclusives like that.
yeah, loads of stuff on there. So yeah, head on over via our link to support the show. Awesome stuff. Have you been? Oh no. Before we go on, let's might as well do stuff. Combine all the stuff. We have an official Warhammer merch link as
Oh
well.
yes, that's new, isn't it? Yes.
It is new. So if you want to, I hopefully I'll put it in the show notes. But if you want to go and buy any Warhammer merch from the official site, I can't remember my login details now on the site, but things like t-shirts, things like they sell Joy toys. So
Oh yeah.
you've got all those. You've got t-shirts. You've got just all manner of things, plushies.
It
What else?
always surprises me. It's worth going and having a look every now and again because it always surprises me what's available on there. I keep thinking of it as like, oh, it's nothing that particularly captures my fancy there. It's kind of the kind of niche things, and then I discover, oh, they do a massive range of cufflinks. They do those little pin badge purity seals, which I still think they're kind of cool. They've got ties now. A weird thing
Oh,
to
it's
have, like
ridiculous.
quite stylish stuff in some of it. You're like,
Some of it.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, not
Yeah.
all of it.
They're also doing. They got like 20% off t-shirts if you buy 4, 15% off 2. They got Space Marine 2 stuff on there. Blimey.
Mm,
Like controllers, t-shirts. There is a lot of stuff on here.
it has. It's
Hoodies,
massively
premium
expanded.
hoodies, baby
Mm,
Guardian t-shirts, jigsaw puzzles, calendars, cushions, hats, beanies, dice bags, coins, coasters, face masks. I'm gonna say not all of it is possibly worth the money, but plenty of it is.
yeah, more of it
Like
than I
all
expected.
Warhammer art.
Yeah,
Oh, a
exactly.
lot of it's not
It's the
available actually.
occasional things that like sneaks in. You're like, oh, hold on, that's quite cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole Warhammer art page is not available.
Oh,
We've got a
okay.
small selection, but they have got posters and notebooks, ties, jackets. Oh yeah, of course you can get a
Yeah, they're new.
Orc
This leather
replica flight jacket. They're
jackets.
not
Yeah.
available. None of that's available um,
Oh,
at the moment. Uh, but yeah,
they're
if you
quite
want
a
to,
cool chaos leather jacket and a imperial
yeah,
leather jacket. Mm.
yeah, not available. But there is, yeah, say there's decent amounts. Some of the t-shirts are quite good. I say they're, it's a company owned logo t-shirt. They're not cheap. Like
Mm.
band t-shirts are not cheap, but
That's not what you're
they're
buying them for,
official.
really.
And you would hope they last as well.
Yeah.
Um, there are some. I mean, there's a lot of t-shirts.
Yes.
It's pretty easy to do because they just upload the images, don't they? But what's the Tyranid t-shirts? It's cool. Just have a little look. So yes, where are the Joy Toys on here? If I look through,
The amount of Joy Toys, that must have done really well, the Joy Toy range in general, because the amount of stuff they've put out is enormous. And obviously they've expanded into the Heresy range.
yeah, I mean shed loads, absolutely shed loads. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember where I got mine from when I bought my Ragnar in the UK. I don't know how the prices compare, but they're available on there if you want them. So
Because
all good.
Mr. Russ is coming, and his good friend Mr. Magnus is coming as well, isn't he?
Yeah, someone's bought a Rust with the link, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so that's that one. Plus, we have the other places. All the links are in the show notes for Patreon and all that jazz. So feel free to use them if you so wish. Have you been hobbying?
I have. I have been. My main thrust has been Sons of Horus. Continue to be that. There's a few things I'm working on as well for which I think we can talk about, given what we're about to talk about. um, I've been getting ready for the Tallarn books. That's reinvigorated my love of Legions, Legions Imperialis and Epic Scale. So I've been building the bits and pieces that Games Workshop have sent us over as a preview. So in my case, the solar side of things. So I've been building Leman Russ variants, Shadow Swords. Shadow Swords I've been waiting for ages. Shadow Swords and Stormblades were real original epic icons for me. So I was really keen to start building those. And had to go with the termites as well, which you kindly sent over. Which I've been rushing to get those, and I'm hoping to get those. I'm going to get some paint on those shortly,
How are
so
they?
those should be out now. I've found they are really nice kits. You sort of quickly realise. I mean, it's interesting the Ally ones. I haven't had a go at the models yet that people have said these are quite a challenge. Drop pods, and the not contemptors, the Leviathans, because of the level of detail in them are made up of a lot of pieces. I haven't had a go with those yet. The models I've had a go with, like the termites, I think are really well engineered. They go together surprisingly quickly. They're not quite at the heady heights of the Thunderbolt, which I still find is one of the best engineered kits they've done, but they're pretty damn good. And the level of detail in them is cool. I just think they're, again, very thematic. They instantly make you want to kind of cut one in half and have it emerging out of the ground. But which would be a lot easier in plastic than anything else. But yeah, I love those. I'm looking forward to getting those and really heavily weathering them up as if they've just come out.
Awesome. So yeah, this
big fan.
is So this is coming out once we can talk about the new. I was going to call it epic then. Legions Imperialis, Devastation of Tallarn book, and the releases that come with it. I haven't.
Yeah.
Now I've got the Arcus, but I haven't actually had a chance to even open these ones yet. The Arcus and the Sabres. I probably should have got round to just having a little look at them, but they're on the must get them done and must jump on a load of. I want to.
We'll get some pictures out of those. We'll get some pictures out hopefully at the point. But at time of recording, you haven't done them.
Well, I won't get mine
I'm
out.
sure you'll have them done.
No chance. So 8 Sabres in a box and 4 Arcuses.
Yeah, before because it's probably like the Russ frame where it's identical, except for the turret weapon. And that's just the same part of the sprue has that weapon on. It just has the different weapon on.
Yes, indeed. So that's cool. So yeah, mine are waiting to come out. Have you been doing anything else, or that's been the main focus of it?
That's been the main focus since we last spoke. As I say, I've been pushing forward with Just Staring Terminators. I built a load of those, some of those of which I bought back in when they first came out, and then promptly put them in a cupboard and didn't touch them. And then was inspired, having picked up a few secondhand models the other day, inspired to get those built and painted, and been doing a big group of those. Again, also partly inspired by the lovely Sons of Horus armies we saw at the event back in June. So it was really captured my attention. But from that, I then jumped over into LI. I've been waiting once I got those to a sort of tabletop ready place, and have been trying to organise the bits of LI that I've got, Legions Imperialis that I've got into, rather than just have one big legion force and one big mass of solar auxilia. I'd like to have smaller forces that can play off against each other and try things. And Legions Imperialis lends itself to that, of course, where you can have the different formations can be different legions. So I was keen to try and start building some of those up. So I've got a few lists together. I'm just finding it's far easier to work towards lists than it is just randomly doing things or just adding to an ever-growing mass of one particular collection. Don't have that problem quite so much with the solar auxilia. I just find I'm just going to do all those in one go, in one cohort style, to match what I did in the Age of Darkness scale. But yeah, that's been my main thrust. Has been Sons of Horus Just Staring, and then the new stuff that's going to come along with Tallarn. What about yourself?
Not a lot. Seems to be the constant way at the moment, unfortunately. It's been time to do that has been spent eBaying stuff, spending time with James, packing stuff for eBay because I've sold it.
That does take a long time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it takes me a long time for sure. And then just caught up doing stuff and things like, are we going to do this? And then thinking, well, I probably should rather than paint. I've just saying my lack of discipline around sitting down and painting is something that I need to try and sort out a little bit. But I say every time I'm really slow at building and painting, but which doesn't really help. And then you kind of end up in that kind of, what am I doing? And then the thing I want to work on isn't the thing I should be working on. And then GW sent us some Legion Imperialis, but also the Mechanicum Battle Group box.
Ooh.
So awesome. You think, I might got all that built. No. There's a couple of Castellax here that I've been building away. And as a guy who had a Mechanicum army, all my days, why couldn't it have been plastic when I started? It's okay. It's not as posable. This Castellax kit. The legs are
surprised at that.
The legs are set like in the bends of the legs. You've got 2 sets of legs, I think it is. Well, you got 2 sets of legs, and you can play around with it a little bit. But they essentially go together one way. I'm sure a better hobbyist than I could do something with them. But as I say, the actual knee joints are one piece. But as a kit, oh my days, does it go together so much better? And if anyone's ever built any Mechanicum in resin, particularly things like ammo feeds for Thanatars, or I haven't started the other stuff yet, but the Darkfire Lance tables, which every time would come bent in a different shape in resin, and you'd have to heat them up and try and get them to fit in, and hope they didn't try and come back too much. Well, these ones are designed in plastic and they fit. There are a lot of little bits on them, but they fit. I won't have pictures.
Part of that worries me because I've got a bunch of resin stuff that I haven't built that I bought many years ago. That I thought, oh, cool, I'll get on and do those and maybe add some of the plastics to them. But that's just going to make building those all the more slightly galling when you could be doing them in nice, easy to work with plastic.
Yeah, I mean, I guarantee you now, some people will be like, "Oh, you can't pose them as much," and therefore will want resin ones. Sell your resin ones, get plastic ones.
Yeah, true.
I haven't really delved into the other bits yet. I mean, yeah, as I say, with any GW plastics now, to get the details they do, there's lots of parts. But they're also, they're Caslax, it's fine. The instructions are just every now and then with GW, I find they're like, oh, put glue here and here, and then they show it with an arrow, and they don't actually show you the bit it's going into. They show you the other side, and you're like, cool. I mean, it doesn't take me long to work it out, but sometimes you're like, this doesn't fit. This doesn't. Hold on. Oh no,
I had
it's
that.
supposed to be like an
I had that
extra
with
half
something.
an inch over.
I had that with something. I think it might. Having praised the termites, there was something on. I think these little hatches that you put in them. Was it those, or was it the tanks? Doesn't matter. There was a part of the Legion's kit where it was like, that's not, particularly as they're sort of black and white paper prints. It wasn't immediately obvious. Now, I'm splitting hairs slightly because compared to some of the older instruction sets, these are infinitely superior. Which, I mean, others people make jokes about. I mean, the classic now finish the owl, it parallel, draw a circle, draw this, and then
Yeah, but that's only
it's finished.
That's only because they were crap back then. Like,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
they should
Those
have been better
instructions
then.
were dreadful, and that were in that style of just jumping to a finished product. Now, at least we do have nice workstages, but there is the odd thing where you're like, where
Like
exactly does that go? I don't quite
90 odd percent
understand.
of the time, and then I look at
Yeah,
one and think, okay, your picture shows me where to put glue on this one part, but doesn't actually show where it's going to join. I tell you
yeah,
what, the Vampire Blood Bowl team, the most common question I've seen asked about that whole team is how does the cloak fit on one of the guys? Because
interesting.
when you get the cloak, it looks like it should fit around the shoulders, and it's not till you look at the picture properly and you're like, oh no, there's like two hooks slightly below or halfway down, 3/4 of the way down the shoulder blade, and it sits there, and it's not until you stop and go and look at the model almost that you appreciate where it should go. It's just every now and then there's one picture and you're like, you show me the wrong angle here. Please go,
Yeah,
please try that again. But
I've seen that. I remember doing that with one of the Solar Auxilia as well. There was something there where I had to go and look at, because there was a couple of the options, a couple of the little sort of contextual pieces that you put in, the sort of little texture pieces you put on, like the ammo pouches or something. It wasn't clear at all what they were or where they go or how they even fitted. It just said, this is an option. Good. And I had to go and look at the sort of heavy metal painted set with the 360s on the website to actually work it out. Okay. That's quite a big jump to have to go and do that. But I mean, yeah, it's a minor observation.
yeah, I say it's not 90 odd percent of the time. It's absolutely fine. But yeah, they look like fantastic kits across the board. Hopefully, I will have these built. I need to find. I think I'm going to do them silver. You sent me a rather lovely version of a silver frame and silver armor model, which I'm
That
thinking I might
was a Thanatar, wasn't it?
was a Thanatar. Yeah.
That was one of the gentlemen who played beside us at one of our games,
Or
one of
was
the
it?
later games at the weekend. I will find his name if I
Yeah,
can.
do that so I
He
can
had
cheat.
a he had a
Oh, Ross.
Iron Warriors aligned Mechanicum force,
Mm.
and they looked great. They really did.
Looked pretty simple as well.
They did simple basing, very
No,
Forge World style basing, simple
executed very
execution.
well,
Yeah, yeah,
but straightforward.
yeah.
So yeah, I might copy something like that. I've just found a picture. Yeah. Yeah, I might even hit up Ross himself. And
Really looking
Iron
forward to that.
Warrior units. Right. Oh yeah, cool.
Really looking forward to that Mechanicum box set. I think that's going to be nice.
Yeah, well,
Looking to see what they do with that.
progressing on from there, because I mean, I'd say like some people love the posability of dreadnoughts, Thanatars, and all those automata, and I'm like, no, just give it to me so that the first one doesn't look like he's been shot in the chest and is falling over backwards, please. Because the first
So
one is
true.
always
Yeah.
built like that. So yeah, I must just be ham-fisted when it comes to this stuff. Um, so having these be able to go, oh, yeah, cool, I can just put them together and they will work is a godsend. But yeah, awesome,
So that's your
awesome,
hobby
that's awesome.
task then for the to get that done. That'll be your hobby
Oh well,
exercise.
I'm going to
Oh God, you're
greetings
away.
from the war mid-September on my
Right.
honeymoon. So, not honeymoon, on my anniversary, wedding anniversary. So, I need to get stuff painted for that. It looks like I might be having more Custodes allies than I planned, but it's not a problem. We can work with that. Before we move on, Tony Spamer, I can't remember how to pronounce his surname. It's got a single M in there, so I don't think it's Spammer Spamer. Was listening to your show, the last one. Thought about the original Black Books with the Legion list in it. So back when Heresy came out, you had a Crusade list, basically, which formed the basis, and you didn't have many other options beyond that because people were waiting for their legions to be released and the books and the rules. So you had these generic lists. Do you think there is mileage in a narrative campaign based on the numbered legions, before they were named? Where players use a standard list with only upgrades being legion specific. No units, but some rules. It says legion specific legions. Not sure what it means there. But legion specific rights of war could be used, but again, if legion specific units become line, they can't be used. So it'll be more balanced with different nuances, but no overpowering unit. What are your thoughts?
So I mean, that almost sounds like it sort of lends itself almost to the idea of like you see in some of the historical games where you have eras, late era, early era, mid
Yeah,
era, that sort of thing. It almost feels like a Great Crusade era thing, but then you wouldn't have Legion versus Legion mostly. Um, Early era Heresy. I mean, the idea of the game I think would be quite cool because it strips it back and makes it quite not straightforward, but makes it quite appealing in its simplicity.
it's simple. It's slightly fairer, but then so my issues with that are one, fairness is um, like when you take away something because you believe there might be an imbalance, it just means
Mm,
something else which is imbalanced becomes the problem.
mm,
Yeah, obviously, the more you break it down till you get to drafts, then it's easy. Like they're both balanced, except one person's going first, uh, and one person is going second. So
mm,
never, the fewer options you have, the more balance you can create.
mm.
But at that point, I'm wondering how much fun the games will be
Yeah.
when Legion X is playing Legion X and there's very little difference between them, and that's every game you're playing.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, I'm sure there's stuff you could do. I'm I'm not sure it really appeals to me that much to go to an event. Maybe play a game like that, fine. I think when it comes to having unbalanced lists, things like that, I just think if you're looking for something, well, it's more something a tournament I would expect to do. When it comes to a narrative event, I think we had a discussion on one of the discords actually about what do people expect from narrative events, and people were talking about scenarios like this scenario being really difficult for the loyalists and that kind of thing. And should a narrative event have completely even scenarios? How even should they be? Or can you have uneven, competitions? But also, if there are slight uneven, how do you go about fixing that? Can you do it by limiting things rather than banning things, or can you give bonuses to, like a lot of places are giving solo auxilia and things like that, like an extra few hundred points in a 250 game, for instance. If this feels more weirdly feels more tournamenty to me to do it that way. So, I mean, you could do it if you can find a few people who are willing to do it. Then yeah, cool. But for me, I suspect you're going to struggle to find people who play Sons of Horrors who are like, yeah, cool, I'm cool with leaving my Just There and my Reavers. And it's not even the problem is it's not even the good stuff some of the time. It's I play Sons of Horror, so I want to do back in first edition particularly, I want to do Reavers, and it's like, well, they're okay, but there are better options. That kind of aspect, but people want to take the stuff that they want, whether it's necessarily any good or not, because it's that to them is why they play that Legion.
I have seen a bit more discussion recently about it, sort of circle back again, and it does so every now and again, where people are really talking up again the imagery of Heresy in particular, compared to say 40k or otherwise, and it's that's capturing their imagination. If you then dial that back to more generic or template version of the legions, where they're only just starting to show a bit of character or a particular preference for a particular tactical style or otherwise, do you lose some of that? Do some of those more evocative color plates become less relevant when you're sort of dialing it back to that? It was Stephen, wasn't it? Who's
Tony.
Tony, got the name completely wrong.
Close.
Did Tony? Did Tony? Is he's writing this from the perspective of balance, as in trying to introduce a greater level of balance, or is this trying to create a particular period or something?
More balanced game with different nuances, but no overpowering units. The problem is
it's kind of similar to what Legions does.
Yeah, in a way. But you could argue if you're allowing
the formation or the special rule that represents the Legions is so significant. In Legions, it has quite a big effect.
But in this, that would move to then the rights of war. So it'd be okay, cool. The legions are exactly the same, but I've chosen this right of war and you've chosen that right of war. That gives me an inherent advantage in the game. So there's always something going on there. I think the approach to narrative could potentially change. And this is what I was kind of referring to earlier. Like, is it a problem if the opponent's army is better than yours? Well, I suppose army's a bit different, actually. Tell a lie. Scenarios is one thing. Armies is a bit different. But is it a problem if I have a weak army and George, who's played 2 games of Heresy, has got a really powerful army? Possibly not. And then you work out like who decides what's overpowered and what's not. Because again, the amount of times I've seen a balanced army beat a supposedly overpowered army because it could do bits of everything and was handled right. And the amount of times we've seen an army, people go, "That's no good," and you're like, "Yeah, I think that is actually. I think you're missing what it does." So Yeah.
It makes me think of a sports team kind of analogy where a lot of the drama comes when the underdog does better than expected and overcomes those things. But the reason they're expected to not win, the reason they are the underdog, is because it is more likely. Because that's the obvious thing to do. Is that if you're playing a weaker army or an underperforming army, the disappointment comes from, for me, is it's the taking away of the random element to it, I suppose, or that it's going into a fight or close combat or something or whatever, just knowing, or doing some shooting and knowing that it's going to be largely ineffective, or it's
Well, I
you sort of
think,
predetermined outcome. That I know the outcome of this is pretty much going to be this.
yeah,
That's disheartening,
they,
I suppose.
they tend to have to be pretty big swings in power level to
Yeah,
do that, though.
yeah,
And to be honest, even within, say, if you stripped everything back and I bought, you know, 5 contemptors in a 2500 point
yeah.
army, and you bought one, and backing up my contemptors were, I don't know, pick X unit that's really powerful, and you've gone, well, I like
You're
Legion
three
Terminators,
Scorpius.
Weapons
Yeah,
Steel
yeah.
4, you know, yeah, you're up against it again then as well. There's
Mm,
so many options, and the problem is narrative is and theme, and people going, I want to play X theme. Someone else going, I want to play X theme, and you're like, cool. Well, your X theme is X theme is
yeah,
50% power and Y is 90% power, but they're both themed.
yeah.
Like so, and it's how you approach that fix and what you do within, particularly within an event environment. Where do you get people to send lists back? Do you not bother and just like cool? Do you try and use a Swiss system of pairing, which only kicks in on round 3? And if you're only playing 4 games, then and even then, um, the amount of times I've played in events and I'm like, how are you at this level on this round? And it's like, well, I played a really good person randomly turn 1, who and then turn 2 I played a guy who also got picked against a really good person. So 2 really good people are on the bottom table. One of them is still going to be down there at game
Hmm.
3. You still get quirks like that. There's no definitive way to solve it. Uh, my system previously has been to walk around the tables and pick matchups, and I can tell you now, there's no, it doesn't work every time either. So, you know, it's
I could see that approach working that Tony describes. I could see that approach working in
small
a
group of
sort of a
people who all
local
know each other.
campaign. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. I
I
could see
think I
someone
think
saying,
that's the
"Let's do
key.
this." A bit like that Return to Isfahan
Mm.
initiative that ran not what was it, a couple of years ago or so. The idea of saying, "Hey, let's strip this back to an earlier era. Let's strip this back to an earlier style or a variant almost of this version of the game. Almost a what if the heresy happened much earlier in the Crusade, for example." I could see that being a thing, being almost running it like a Necromunda campaign.
Yeah, but then I think it doesn't. If you've got the kind of group who are prepared to do that, then you could probably just do everything anyway. Like
Yeah.
then you can handle those issues anyway. Going going into larger events where you don't know people becomes an issue, but that's just an issue of having larger events where there are more people coming from different environments. I mean, it even happens in small groups as well. There's always that person who plays a bit harder than the others.
Mm.
We're lucky in our group for Age of Sigmar and 40k that I know that there are certain people I don't play because we play very different games. And that's not a problem. Luckily, if I want to play 40k, I can choose who who I get to play normally, and it's a smaller percentage because they play mainly tournaments, and I'm a bit more relaxed, shall we say?
Mm.
But yeah, there's good chat. I mean, yeah, the other side of it is then I think narrative gaming, and I'm not going to say that my next event's going to be perfect on this, but the communities that attend narrative events could have a different outlook on what they're going to,
Mm.
and events could cater to it slightly differently as well. again, neither of those are necessarily easy to build. So, yeah, not sitting here slagging anyone off for any of that.
Oh no,
It's
it's
just
interesting that the different
narrative
approaches.
takes. Sometimes I just think, why don't I run 40k tournaments? It's so easy, particularly now with GHVs and everything else,
Yeah,
and whatever they're called, because it's all done for you. You just go, cool. I choose some scenarios and crack on. Oh no, you got hammered. Cool. Well, you bought a NAF list and played it badly. That's the nature of tournaments. Um, yeah, within reasons, you can just say that. Whereas running anything non-tournamenty requires that bit more effort and forethought.
yeah,
Awesome. Right.
yes.
Let's call that there and then come back and talk some news. Okie dokie. Well, in the
News.
month or so, we're not quite at the end of the month when we're recording this because I am going away and this does need to be edited and ready to go out. It's been fairly quiet. Age of
It really
Sigmar 4's
has.
out
Yeah.
and it's quite good. But heresy-wise, it's been a little bit more quiet. As you said earlier, we have some. We have a Magnus the Red is now joining the Joy Toy range. It's got
Yes.
and a load of Thousand Sons as well. It's got like quite a few Primarchs now. They got Russ, the Lion, Gooderman,
I forgot
Magnus.
about that line. Yeah, Dawn.
Yeah, Dawn. Um, yeah, there's a lot there.
Magnus looks incredible. Actually, all of the Thousand Sons, I thought they just nailed that. I thought it just lent itself to that larger scale. I'm quite looking forward to some painters getting hold of that. Mind you, I was saying that with Russ. I haven't seen that actually happen yet. Russ, I think, would be similar.
Has Russ actually
See,
been released, or is he just on pre-order? I think
that'll be why.
he
Okay,
might
that
just
might
be
be
on
why.
pre-order.
That'll be why I haven't
Yeah.
seen it. But I
To
quite
be
enjoy
fair,
when people sort of up paint them, if you like.
yeah,
Um,
it's pretty cool, isn't it?
but yeah, that happened.
It definitely did happen. What else we got? We got delving into the Necromunda section. We have the heretical tech priest biologist
Oh
Hermiotus,
yes,
which has got a really cool story actually. If you want a quick like update on what's going on in Necromunda, you can go check out Arbiter Ian's videos on YouTube because he's done like 20 minutes kind of everything that's happening kind of thing around the new stuff coming out. But this guy essentially was trying to kind of Necromunda, like a lot of other places, has put down a number of gene stealer infestations, but never quite eradicated it. And this guy, I think it's this guy, has then gone down to like, cool, I'm going to discover how to kill them off this world completely, and is struggling to do it in a biological sense. So
yes.
tries to then
There's a suggestion that it might have been sanctioned or encouraged by the Inquisition. Maybe
yeah, he's
there's
working
also a
very
suggestion making them basically making humans immune to the gene stealer,
yeah.
or perhaps eventually developing a vaccine to the gene
And then
stealer
yeah,
infection.
and then it doesn't kind of work. So he's like, kind of cool. Well, I'll just connect with them psychically, and then we can do it that way. And then immediately kills some of his friends, releases the the pure strain they've got, kills the Inquisitors, and no one really knows because it's a secret project. So yeah, but
What I particularly love about this is that particular piece of story and lore all kicked off from a Space Crusade um,
who did it?
piece of story that they did in a very early White Dwarf, 140 or something like that, which I thought was super cool that they'd gone and dredged up that particular piece, even for a game that is unrelated to Necromunda.
Well,
Um,
if
yeah,
you hear strange noises coming from Howard's End, he's painting and building models. So
not painting,
he's
not getting that far, but I did
just
just drop a
building.
Lehman Russ. Yeah.
There we go. That's what the sound of a Lehman Russ. If a Lehman Russ falls onto the hobby desk, there's no one there to hear it. Doesn't make any noise. Um, yeah, but it's a cracking model. Obviously, the Gene Stealer
Oh yeah, love
is
it.
a little bit different, but it shouldn't be too hard for anyone vaguely capable to take that off. there's a lot going on with that. If you need a heretical
Yeah.
tech priest of any kind, I think he's going to get use. What else we got? Not a lot. But we do have, what we have is big. The Martian Civil War. It's
That
coming.
came out of nowhere, didn't it? Really?
Yeah. Dropped off on a Tuesday as well, wasn't it, or something? A
Yeah. Yeah.
random day. So we're looking at the Schism of Mars, obviously. Rogodon's campaign to safeguard defense of the Sol system. We got some previously seen exemplary battle stuff in there. But the big thing is probably the Dark Mechanicum.
Yeah.
So there are 4 new varieties of high techno arcana. So necrotechnology, malamina, and some other stuff. Who knows? So when they were doing black books, they had basically there are the sins of AI, messing with the Emperor's form, and warp tech. So I wonder if they put Xenos stuff in there or not. I don't know. As the other one, but we've got a little sneak peek here of the Scion of Sarum warlord trait, which allows blood slaughterers as troops and/or fast attack choices in a detachment, and they can be
A lot of
compulsory as
those.
well,
Yeah.
compulsory line. So yeah, some crazy armies potentially coming.
I was when I read that preview, I was slightly. I thought, is this going to be a bit like the book that had the Emperor's Children, the Exemplary Battles book that they did there? It's a sort of compilation thing with a few extra bits, compilation of Exemplary Battle PDFs with a few extra bits, and that's. I'm going to assume it's that, and then be pleasantly
Yeah,
surprised if it turns out to be more, because I think that's probably what it's going to be. Which surprised me for such a pivot. Relatively, it feels like a very pivotal and a very significant thing, but
but it doesn't.
actually, it is quite small and self-contained. It's another way of looking at the
But it's
Civil War at
also.
Mars.
I mean, we'll get on later. Like, just because it's the Martian Civil War, it doesn't mean it's all the Martian Civil War.
No, that's true. No,
So they can come out later on and do. What's the name of the city? The main one,
Magma City,
Magma City. Yeah,
Neocon. No, hang on, Magma City. Yeah,
Magma City. Yeah, Neocon. We've done plenty
yeah,
of
that's
that.
somewhere else. Yeah, that's somewhere
Yeah,
else. Yeah,
that's big
and it's
garment.
Niacon anyway.
So
I got that wrong.
Nikon, indeed. So yeah, one thing I did see is people getting very excited about the Titan support reduction, removal of points limits for Titans,
Okay.
which is a campaign stratagem. So, um, something so crazy to change the rules being used in a campaign is probably fine. But more input into the what's it called, the onslaught campaign system as well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's cool. I think if you weren't a big fan of the exemplary battles book, it might be closer to that than to
Mm-hmm.
um, what was the other one called? The main one. My word.
Beta Garma book, the Siege of Cathonia,
Yeah, Siege of Cathonia.
yeah,
Um,
or
no,
the
but
Great
we will
Slaughter.
see. Yeah. So yeah, who knows? But again, I know some people are really against the idea of having PDFs then put into a book that you can buy. Okay,
Mm.
cool. Don't buy it if you've got the PDFs. Fine. I I do like the option of having that. I saw someone complaining about the new. Um, just today, they announced that they're doing a they're doing a link up with a book about like what is 40k and listing everything. And someone's like, "Oh, this should be free." And it's like, well, it's not. Yeah, it is a sales booklet, really, but it's not. It's got words in it and stuff like that, and it needs to be bound and put into a physical product. And yeah, and at the end of the day, if you don't want to buy it, you don't buy it. But for some people, having that on the coffee table is going to be worth their 45 quid or whatever it is.
Mm.
Um, and I'm like, if I go to an event, I kind of prefer books. I don't want 5 books to carry to an event like we used to have to do. might print off the rules and what have you, or take a photocopy. But books are kind of better for me gaming. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
And all for anything and everything related to Dark Mechanicum. I think that will look, particularly with what we're going to have coming out with the increased accessibility and
I'd
arguably
wonder,
ease of modelling, will lead to hopefully some cool new stuff.
I wonder how deep it will be.
Yeah,
I would temper expectations, shall we say?
and that's kind of why I opened in the way that I did. It's I'm going to imagine that this is a compilation of exemplary battles. Anything more than that, there is some more than that, but I'm going to assume it's pretty minor.
And
if
the
it's
Dark
more than that,
Mechanicum
great.
bit being, here's a way to use all your stuff you've got, but in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
Maybe again like 2 pages of how to use it and rules, and then not a huge amount of new stuff, but it's good.
Yeah.
It's content. It is good. I believe they'll be working on something. So I mean, they have got I know the Onslaught campaign. The campaign stuff sounds quite good actually. I might have to try and work out how to play a campaign with someone nearby for that one.
And we've not got it's more a report of no news, with nothing on the close combat sprue or the sort of assault marine
No, I mean that
weapons
just
sprue
drop.
could drop at a moment's notice. There's no previews. I don't think there's any
Planned.
previews scheduled and planned, and they've actually dropped quite a big 40k release relatively, just on our Monday morning announcement kind of thing. So it suggests that we could get reasonably sizable, reasonably significant releases could just come out of nowhere.
August 28th to September the 1st to the Nova Open.
And there's probably a preview there.
So there'll be a preview of the Nova Open on the 28th probably. So who knows? We haven't got we haven't actually got a roadmap for 40k going at the moment, or Age of Sigmar. So I think roadmaps might be out of favour at the moment. But yeah, who knows? So looks a bit quiet on that on all that front. But as you say, it's Age of Sigmar's come out. Yeah, there'll be a little bit of time. Get back on the wagon, as it were. I'm sure there'll be plenty of stuff, and they seem to be putting out. I'm just trying to think what they put out for order. Sunday preview is it's more Age of Sigmar stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
in the not too
Warcry.
distant future, we'll obviously have Tallarn, and we're going to have the Mechanicum box. So there is some pretty big. Those are pretty big releases.
They'll be available now.
Yeah. So there's those. Those are big things. It's after that. It'd be interesting to see what's coming.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is they're kind of like they've released Warcry Warbands as well. So it looks like they're putting out a decent amount of stuff in that period of time. Hopefully, because of course they had the warehouse things going on. But did we see the news about that? We didn't talk about that last time, did we?
We didn't.
They're solidifying, looking at an extra warehouse space and upping the production to stay on top of things. So
yeah, it was quite a significant site, adjacent to where they are right now in Nottingham. They've managed. The planning application's gone through. Yeah. So that's quite advanced, but it wasn't going to start until 2025 at the earliest. Was it 2026? It's a way off.
25, yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, so stuff going on within that. What I do want to talk about here is Jordan Sorcery. We've mentioned his show on YouTube a number of times. It is now available. The interviews from that show are now available on in podcast form as well.
Oh, cool!
Through your regular podcatcher, and he's put up shed loads. I listened to a few in the last week or so that are really quite interesting. Adrian Smith was okay, but as a guy who did one of the most famous pictures in Heresy. There's some good stuff there. Mark Gascoigne worked for Black Library, and when they made Black Library, basically been around Games Workshop for a long time. Some really interesting stuff about Games Workshop and early days of the novels and things like that. And Jervis Johnson
Oh yeah,
as well,
that was a good one.
talking about games design and kind of what has been going on around certain aspects of GW's game design and the way the company worked at various points as well. Yeah, so I just want to put if you like, in-depth chats. Jordan needs no help from me really on sharing his stuff, but I found those three, and Duncan Rhodes was always good value. He was another one I've
I
listened
would
to very recently.
very much second this, and have done so with friends of ours repeatedly. The one I found particularly interesting was Mark Wells, the CEO for a
Yeah,
period. I found that a particularly interesting one. I mean, Jordan has made a point on his show saying he's very interested in how the business evolved, it's evolving, charting that and seeing how that's had an impact on the decisions and the design ethos behind the games that we all enjoy playing. And I thought the Mark Wells one in particular was quite informative for that and really well handled.
what's quite interesting, I can't remember if it was the Adrian Smith one or the Mark Gascoigne one, where basically they were like, yeah, I'm very familiar with your content. And I think it might have been Mark, it might have even been before that one. Either way, it might have been someone else. And they were basically finding out stuff that was happening that they didn't know about when they were in the company at that time. I think one of the comments was, well, this story is not going to be in the Dice Men. um, so yeah, there's still plenty of information out there. Like I didn't realise, when Black Library was created, they sat down and went, right, what can we do? Okay, we can do this. We can do this. Oh yeah, we'll definitely do the Horus Heresy at some point. Day one of the Black Library, it was on there. Kind of, it makes sense to do that kind of thing. And then listening to Jervis talk about designing Adeptus Titanicus, and that we all know that it was Civil War because of the nature of tooling costs and things like that. But to hear him talk about kind of, oh yeah, we found this and we did this and that became that, and moving forwards was interesting. Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, Jordan, really enjoying Jordan's channel for all that
Agree.
stuff.
Would
And
heartily recommend.
yeah, and and I was around for like lots of, been in the hobby for a decent amount of time. The 80s stuff is a bit beyond my time, but you'd hear little things and bits and pieces. But finding out all that information, there's a lot of people who had no idea about Games Workshop back then and how it operated. In fact, I saw someone say, what was it? That I think there's an FAQ for a book that's only just literally come out. They're like, oh, that's classic GW. And I'm like, or peak GW. And I'm like, peak GW has changed a lot in the years I've been here. Because even 20 years ago, you'd have gone, FAQ? FAQ?
Right.
What have we done to deserve an FAQ? So, yeah, it's a very different company than what it used to be. And newer
And this kind of
people.
reflects on that, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, big time. And yeah, because I sometimes see it when newer people are around. There's a lot of Heresy gamers who are more veteran, shall we say, even though the ones I used to hang out with in the Heresy scene are less frequent now. But you say stuff and there's a lot of assumed knowledge as well. Like we know stuff and think people know stuff because we know stuff. But you'll make a statement and people will be like, oh, you need to back that up. And it's like, well, it's kind of known. Like, it's kind of the way it has been. And you can kind of, Jordan gives, these interviews give a little bit of a viewpoint into some of the aspects of what was going on. Of course, everyone's got their own version of events and all that, but it's interesting stuff. But I don't think there's any more real news with
No,
regards
I
to
was
Heresy.
struggling to think of any. We were just trying to think through that section. It's been pretty quiet, but because the focus has been on Sigma.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. I did have. I've got a friend who's coming to the end of a book series, or the end of the current, the latest in the series, and I was like, I think I'm going to go and reread the Heresy, like not all of it, like selected books. I need to tell him which episodes we did that on with Michael, but he said to me, "Were you satisfied with the end of the Siege of Terror?" So, as of end of July, are you satisfied with the end of the Siege of Terror, how it ended, Howard?
Yes, I am.
You are.
Simple,
Cool.
straightforward
Simple.
answer. I think I am. Yeah. I reflect back on it, and there's some of the bigger beats in that. Also, it's easier to pass over the amount of depth it went into
Mm.
and only remember the significant things. And those significant things remain memorable to me, and I enjoyed them. And they felt sufficiently big to round out that, and it concluded everything I wanted it to in a way that I was, satisfied is the right word. So
Cool.
yes, is the short answer to that.
Well, I think my first answer was, can you ever be, like, how satisfied can you be when you know the outcome going in?
Mm.
You know, like, can you be more than satisfied? Like, when things don't change much beyond what you know. Uh, the other thing I was thinking was, do you hear people talking about the books much?
No.
About those three books? It's a really weird thing because like, there's kind of an echo of when Game of Thrones finished, but for very different reasons. Game of Thrones wasn't talked about because of the complete, like, loss of interest in what had happened and everything else, and generally most people think they really jumped the shark with the last. That's not quite the right term, but they got it wrong at the end. The last season, half a season.
I disagree with that, but I agree with you. That is the popular opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the accusations on Game of Thrones are completely out there. Like, Daenerys should have burnt everything down. She was mad as box of frogs. But I don't think the last season was good.
Mm.
um, but with the Heresy, I don't know. It just seemed to have fizzled a little bit. I'm not sure if that's because it was, oh, cool, like it happened roughly how we knew it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't seen any fallout post, like, that covers events post that. Now that may change if and when we get Pandemonium, potentially that can tie into
Mm.
that. My argument there is then, should we need a book from a completely different series to add weight to the accumulation of a 60 odd book series? Probably not. Um, is it just is it just because of the nature of how big the heresy was, and, as I say, that very final bit is was always known? I don't know. It's an interesting one.
Like you, well, I think it's fair to say, like you, I would have. I'm surprised there wasn't an announcement, or has not yet been an announcement, not that there potentially ever will be, about the scouring or some other series that
What
deals
else?
with a
Yeah.
post. And I feel like that would have kept with people looking ahead to that. I think there then would be more conversation about what we have now, with the sense of, well, that's that then. There's nothing really to talk about. Well, there is obviously things to talk about, but there's less impetus to talk about um, that now, the book series and similar, now that it is concluded. I similarly find it a bit strange, and I've thoroughly enjoyed. I think I mentioned it before, but going back in I definitely did. Going in to do some reading on the Sons of Horus and just looking up a list of all the Sons of Horus books and revisiting those as a set. And there's plenty in there that I'd completely forgotten about. Really enjoyed that. So there will obviously, it's a setting. You can go back and reread particular arcs. I really, really want to read all the parts of Tallarn again for obvious reasons. You can go and do that, but there's nothing quite like something continuing as a series or driving forward. And I wonder if we might, if and when they do something that addresses or covers some points of the Scouring, will that reinvigorate an interest in particular in the Siege?
Yeah, it's a really strange thing for me. I don't know.
Strange
'Cause
limbo, it feels like.
yeah, but I kind of didn't want them to jump into whatever's coming
No,
next.
I agree with you, but I thought it was likely.
Yeah, but now I'm like, oh, it's been ages. And I
Yeah,
don't know if that's just a conditioning of modern life in that, things don't have that breathing space. Maybe they haven't. Maybe they're not ready to kind of push on whatever is coming next if they have something lined up, which I'm pretty sure they do. I don't know. It's just a weird place. Anyway, it's not news, but it was a
it's a reflection.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a reflection of that. I will probably jump in. I'm definitely not collecting the limited editions. I don't
no,
think
won't
many
be doing that
people are
again.
on those. There'll be a whole new set of people who can try and do something like that. But I'm also, well, actually, I've just started listening to June on
Oh, really?
Audible to go back and forget quite how the style it's written. But I'm then thinking, what do I read next? And I'm like, oh, maybe I should intersperse rereading the Heresy with Pratchett or something like that. But who knows? Who knows? Lots of books to read slash listen
So
to.
many.
So yeah. All right. Well, let's call it that, and let's have another break. And we'll come back in a bit. Okie dokie. Well, here we are. The Legions Imperialis, the Devastation of Tallarn. We got sent an electronic copy of the book to review from GW, and desperately trying to read it in time, even though it's not a particularly large book. I'm just going to pick up, I've got the Great Slaughter here. I'm just going to have a little look, and it's about the same size as the Great Slaughter. The
It's pretty
previous.
dense. There's a
There's
lot
a
in it,
there's a
but there was quite a
decent
lot in the
amount
Great
in it.
Slaughter. To be fair,
There's a decent amount in it. I'll give you that. So with a title like The Devastation of Tallarn, I mean it has to be fair. Got a second title of The Fall of the Sapphire City, and that's very much what it is.
yeah.
It, yeah. Is it The Devastation of Tallarn? A little bit. It's mainly The Fall of the
A key
Sapphire
part.
City.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean the devastating bit happens, but not necessarily the wide scope war that you think you might be getting with the book.
which was a bit true with the Great Slaughter as well.
Yeah, yeah, they're a
In
bit
that
smaller, a
its
bit more
focus is that,
focused.
which I think it's an interesting academic approach as well. Which when you're doing something tedious like a dissertation or otherwise, that you discover you need to suddenly become very specific with what you're covering,
Sure.
or otherwise to be able to do a deep dive in it rather than remain broad. And I feel like that's what they're doing here, taking quite an academic approach of saying, okay, let's zoom in on one part of it, do that
Well,
really well, rather than skirt above it at a higher level.
yeah, and I wonder if part of that is the nature of their releases as well. So, you got a handful of toys for the Solar Auxilia, and we got the Sicarans and the Sabres. We've got some drop stuff going on as well, but it's not like they've put in, a shed load of new rules in here. There's a decent amount, but it feels
I
like
think
we're getting.
that does bring me to a bit of a negative, and I think I might have said this about the Great Slaughter as well. I've certainly said it about some others. I do find that the tie-in nature of it with something new releases, with some new releases, can take the edge off a little. It just because it
Sure.
stands out a bit to me, where it's we're going to feature stories that particularly feature the units that we happen to be releasing.
Yeah,
I kind of get it. I get that. I see what the principle is there, but it just slightly takes me out of this is a historic narrative of describing a particular conflict. But
the
isn't it
oh,
strange that we're having a particular focus on sabers, for example?
sure. But
Okay,
so the only one that really jumped out at me here was the termites,
yes,
which
yes,
weirdly fit in because of the way
that
they
one did fit
used.
particularly well. Yes,
But it felt like, oh, we better put the termites in.
yeah.
Um, but having whole squadrons of Lehman Russ and then having predators talked about a lot. What else was talked about a lot? Sabres a little bit. They weren't didn't feel like they were mentioned too much. It was mainly
Oh, I thought they
predators.
stood out to me. They stood
Oh,
out
did they?
partly because they just
Maybe.
hadn't come up before. The sabers stood out to me because their absence elsewhere, maybe. And it
Sure.
does, to be fair, they do suit the White Scars, who they're
Yeah.
talking about here. So maybe I'm nitpicking. And fair enough, shadow swords would feature in this, which feature in this. It just there's a certain element of that. Although I did notice, so it's a bit of a tangent. Surprise, surprise. There was a dropship type. Was it a dropship or no? It was a gunship that a pattern I've never heard of
I
before,
must have
and it's
missed that.
very unusual. It's called something called like the August. I will search for it while we
Very
continue
cool. So
speaking.
I think there's
Hmm.
13 detachments here plus 3 tank commander detachments. So not a massive amount of stuff, reasonable amount of new stuff. But bearing in mind that's split over auxilia um, and marines. Uh, yeah, I didn't know. I mean, the Titans. If I felt there was enough in there that was like, okay, cool. I can believe this all happened around this city. I didn't
Hmm.
think it was terribly bad. And it is at the end of the day, it's Talon, so it's all tanks, which helps
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Helps fit that all in.
This was
The
never
odd
going to be.
Terminators.
Yeah, this was never going to be the book where they released another infantry sprue.
No,
um, does make sense as well. I feel like a bit of a miss was not having the Space Marine super heavies because
sure.
Fell Blades feature in a particular action quite heavily, um, and they just feel like a bit of a thing that's missing. But then Marines only really made up obviously from the traitors side they made up a significant portion, but they didn't make up a massive portion of the defenders
Well, no.
side of it.
So
So yeah, maybe.
yeah. So there's a little bit of background on Talon being a lovely verdant world, um, a life-filled planet, and rarely a life-supporting world that doesn't just get used for agriculture because it's got a load of dead neighbours. It's or it didn't get used for industry because of like it didn't lose the luster of the world because of it's being used for industry because the other neighbouring planets were dead. So it manages to maintain a kind of mixed ecological uh, kind of setting. What they then had to do, rather than to have all this manufacturing to be able to do that, they then had to dig deep and tunnel to store everything because it became an important part of the crusade in terms of material and supporting the war effort. So you've got your setting. Then, of course, Great Crusade pushed on, and Talon kind of got forgotten about a little bit and is less important because it's not as close to anything, of course, until Perturabo set his eyes on it. When he's
Mm,
come here for what's it called again? The Cursus,
mm,
which is this rumored weapon. And of course, if you've read any of the Talon books from the Heresy, you're going to have a an idea of what's going on here. It covers aspects of that. A little bit more detail, obviously, in certain places, because the Tallarn books take place after they start after the destruction. It's been a while since I read the first ones, actually. But once the destruction's happened, I think underground with the humans there, and push on through that story.
Mm.
Whereas this tells us the story of Perturabo appearing and all the ships coming out of warp space far too close to the planet. I do like the little touches in here of like not everything's happened.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they come out and it's all a bit chaotic, and there are ships crashing into each other, Iron Warrior ships, because they've translocated through some
yeah.
method
Through
closer.
less than common means. Yes.
Yes, and then some of the warsmiths are like, oh, by the way, while we're here, just fire a broadside into that one, will you? And
Yeah,
he's a
yeah.
rival, don't
That
like
guy's a
him.
prick. Can we just sort that out? Yeah.
Yeah. So even at that point, before they're even on planet, they're taking each other out, which is quite nice. Of course, then Perturabo's flagship appears, and all of that stops
Mm-hmm.
because he don't take prisoners.
No,
And this all means that
looks
basically,
busy.
Talon wasn't ready, didn't know this was coming, wasn't ready. A load of their defences are overrun before they're even um, aware of what's going on. One little group managed to send out a message. The 71st Cinderborn Solar Auxiliary Cohort managed to kind of overcome the paralysis of their command staff and get a message out, which is what enables the Talon to start to mount a defense. I do like right at the bottom of page 17. They have a final message was transmitted to Talon services directed to remote administratum subdivision in the outlets of the Crescent province and ident tag to the 71st Cohort's High Command. Messenger ship destroyed. Distress broadcast failed. Pilgrim's Rest unreachable. No help is coming. Die
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Yep, that sums up
yeah,
40k for you.
yeah. We didn't nothing. Yeah, we didn't get any messages out beyond here. You're in serious trouble.
Yeah. So, yes. And then we have
It is bleak, isn't it? It is bleak, that opening.
probably the, yeah,
Yeah.
because we go from there to a virus bombing, but not a traditional virus bombing, because, well, Perturabo doesn't care. It's
He
designed
likes
to,
to do a little tweak. He's like, I think I
yeah,
can make some adjustments here.
Talon isn't important enough for them to want to keep it. so,
Yeah.
so rather than have the life eater go down and then burn up in atmosphere, the new viral weapons they use are actually designed to mutate and to change and to hang around and to kill a world beyond recognition, which is
And to be
lovely.
in much more sort of toxic,
Yeah,
pervasive, and not generate that noxious, ignitable
yeah,
thing that then creates the firestorm that you saw in Isfahan. I thought the fact that they bothered to acknowledge that it had changed and was quite different, I thought was cool.
yeah. It's a mixture of like what was it? It's, phosphex and other
Mm.
stuff, and yeah, loads of different things going on, and it's designed to make this world uninhabitable, basically. Which, in theory, planet for the humans should mean that the Iron Warriors get to do as they wish. Um, so yeah, I mean the other thing.
Overall, yeah, carry on.
No, go for it.
What I did like about this is that there's a number of parts of the law. I think the law is a very good example. The law section of this book is a very good example of its type. I think it goes into a lovely level of detail. The number of maps that help explain some of these movements really lends itself to that armored warfare, even urban warfare that you're seeing going on. As you say, it's focusing on the Sapphire City because it's got such a big focus on the solar. And as you said, you mentioned the 71st Cinderborn as they are there, and latterly it goes on to be the Talon Reborn and things that they've got. We haven't seen that level of focus really because of the forces that are available in the release of Legions Imperialis. Naturally, you're going to see them cover things and introduce the Solar Auxilia. But I thought their introduction, and really, I got a real sense of the combined arms nature. Started that in the Great Slaughter. That's really continued in this with some strength. This idea that you've got a combined arms of Imperial army, of which the Solar Auxilia are a significant and elite part of it. The legions obviously being a hugely impactful element, even the way Titans are perceived. Aircraft don't really play as much, but space conflict does here.
I think
I thought that came across really strongly, and I thought the Solar Auxilia come out really well in terms of how they operate, and just a lot more information and story about them. Is, like I say, when I was having to go with my Sons of Horus, I wanted to go back and reread my Sons of Horus. When I wanted to do Solar Auxilia, what do I read? The only thing I could think to read from the Heresy series was, from the Black Library series, was Tallarn, and that wasn't the Solar Auxilia specific. There isn't a set stories about that. This, I thought, starts to, even though you haven't got specific characters, although there is a Marshal of the Cinderborn who features quite heavily running through that narrative. But you don't have characters like that. But at least you're getting some narrative description of what the Solar Auxilia are about, how they operate, and how it then comes across as a combined arms thing. I thought that came over really well.
Yeah, and I think the game in itself, where Marines are basically all the same except for that one rule, allows you don't need to show off specific Marine units, so you can essentially show all your Marine units off in the traitor force. Obviously they don't. There are some white scars in this, and then you can have them faced by the Solar Auxilia. And again, there are some on the traitor side, but primarily you're looking at it that way, which allows space and time for each of those to shine, which helps tell that story and create that thing. Also, the nature of the Solar Auxilia being pretty much by themselves for the first part of this fight, which is cool.
It is cool. It's cool to see, and one of the reasons I was kind of interested to see how they did Talon, and that's cool that comes across. The second thing that stood out to me was the traitors seem really dangerous. I think there was a real chance here that it could look like the Iron Warriors botched this. Like it was all theirs to win, and you've got a full legion there ready to go. They're up against Solar Auxilia, and eventually there are quite a lot of loyalist Marine elements arrive, and it reaches the deadlock that it is. But you sort of think, hang on, this is not painting. It's another example of the traitors nearly win, but are just thwarted at the last minute, or that there's something they fumble it. That doesn't come across at all to me. In this, it comes across as they are super dangerous, and the loyalists are kind of outmaneuvered continually, and end up with them fumbling around. They're crashing into each other. They're fleeing here. They're fleeing there. It's chaos.
Yeah, they have their one or two moments, but it's not.
Yeah,
they're actually they're smaller moments that are followed up by bigger wins for the enemy. Yeah, and you have that. It's that message which is the only reason that that it doesn't happen quicker than it does. Effectively, that the planet isn't taken because 1 billion. It's estimated 1 billion people escape the surface and get to these subterranean shelter networks where this huge wealth of arms and armor can be found, and some of it needs to be kind of played around with to make work and stuff. But there are disparate, like everywhere's separated. Like the communications are down. They're too scared to communicate, which is sensible, and to use all spexes all the time and all that. They're really under the cosh. So you've got these. You haven't got a mass Solar Auxilia until like they desperately need to do that kind of thing. Martial law's been brought in to do it. Like the pressure is really on them, and they do suffer and suffer and suffer. But the Iron Warriors have a large area to be looking, and they have to be looking for this thing as well. So it starts off very well for them, for sure.
And when they decide the focus, I mean, the book sort of shifts quite quickly into a focus on the Sapphire City, and about what they're going to and why the focus shifts to the Sapphire City. He
Well,
explains that, and then it
yeah,
covers it
I mean,
quite well.
yeah, I mean, one of the best reasons is as to why the Iron Warriors are held up a bit is because of this mass arsenal that is available, and there's even the point in there where it's like, why exactly were there so many Lehman Russes and all that there? And it's
Yeah.
like, was this part of Horace's plan to come here, grab a load of extra troops and extra stuff, and before my push to terror? Because right at the start of this, we're like, hold on, everything's set up on the push to terror now. The other advantage of Tallarn is it's not far from Inwit, so once Perturabo's got this weapon, he's well stationed to turn his face to the Imperial Fists, and Horus and the Sons of Legion, the Sons of Horus are actually kind of in that area, ready to pounce as well. We find out later on.
Have you heard Inwit referred to as the Inwit Protectorate before?
No, so that's the whole.
I thought that was new to this, wasn't it?
That's
Yeah.
a nice terminology, isn't it? Yeah, that's like the system or whatever, isn't it?
Yeah, or it's this sort of little fiefdom of the
Yeah,
Imperial Fists.
however big it
It
is.
also made the point of that's one of the reasons Talon is a relatively it's swept aside relatively easily. It's because it's actually been plundered.
Yeah.
A lot of its
Yes.
fleets, protective fleets, and things are
pulled
moving
back.
around. Yeah, they've gone elsewhere, and then suddenly out of nowhere, bang, the Imperial Iron Warriors turn up. But what's left is it's been like a single Imperial Fist cruiser there, which is also there to help try and pull some material out to be used elsewhere. I thought that was quite cool. Again, explaining all of that. But yeah, as you say, that was one of the reasons why this is, and it suggests also there's more. That there's quite a few worlds like this that are being used as kind of weapons caches on a massive scale, which may or may not be used. And it might be the War Master. It might be something else. It's not entirely. It's left open to interpretation, but it's saying there's plenty of reasons why this might happen.
Yeah, for sure. And when we get later on, actually, there's in the fight for the Sapphire City, which again is the main drag of this. There's talk about this whole area, the devastation of whatever it's called, the map, but excuse me, the Northern Desolation. That's the one with multiple cities and whatever. But Perturabo eyes the Sapphire City as being key to what he's doing, and the loyalists are taking a pounding. The loyalists do get some reinforcements actually sweep in at point one before some more come in later. But Perturabo isn't willing to drop all of his troops into this thing and get caught up in this yet.
No.
He's got this whole area of the desolation to search for the curses, whilst making sure that he doesn't get hit. He sends stuff into the cities, and they do pretty good job. But there are some reinforcements. There are an element of forcing a little bit of a break in hostilities, and eventually getting the Solar Auxiliary of the Sapphire City to come out to fight after this humongous bombardment by Perturabo, and he's just dropped this whole huge amount of machinery, and in typical Iron Warriors fashion has just bombarded this city while he's done it to try and keep everything quiet. But I thought the story of the bit where you thought the Solar Auxiliary might get the upper hand, the Loyalists might get an upper hand, where they're out basically using the very end of that cover of bombardment to go and hide in the city, literally apart demolishing buildings onto themselves to hide, and to find that actually, again, typically the traitors are sending in the humans first, but to let them roll through their lines and then strike them down was really well written. Because again,
I think this is quite well written overall. I get a real sense of some research was done into armor combat.
Sure.
It was. I'm not familiar with that. There's only so many historical things I've read, but I got a real sense of this being a very different type of conflict, and as you say, stuff like that, the claustrophobia of being in, which is this doesn't. It's not done from the perspective, obviously, of individual fighting vehicles, or otherwise it's done as the grand sweep, and yet it still comes across with manoeuvres like you're describing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and on top of that, you've got the classic, Titans coming in and dominating because they would do against Solar Auxilia. There's one point where they set another trap and they get a load of Leman Russes are almost sacrificed to turn a Warhound and strip its shield so that it can be
that was
brought
cool.
down by super heavies, which then pay the price for it. A Knight household again sacrificing itself to slow down some Titans on another part of the battlefield. A real classic 30k stuff going on, and within all that you then get another well executed, but you kind of know what's going on because you know that the Alpha Legion are there. Troops being driven before the enemy, only to have them turn around once they're past the front line of the defenders and open up because they're insurgents. And then you get the question of how long have they been on planet? Like, we kind of know the Alpha Legion were there way before the Iron Warriors. So who's involved where, who's doing what.
Suddenly, there's the already chaotic disposition of the loyalists is made even further. Which, if you had read Tallarn at all or read relatively recently, the John French book, that tying into some of the narrative in those stories that were part of that, because that's not just the one novel, obviously it's a couple of novellas and short stories. I thought they did that very well, extrapolating out that storyline from that and extending it into a bigger conflict here in this false flag, which they refer to repeatedly, action and the chaos that causes the loyalists in particular.
Yeah, and then over all this, I mean, there are some mechanicum on both sides as well that get talked about, and
quite a
some
lot of
white scars.
mechanicum actually.
Yeah, and the white scars being quite effective. Without them, it could have ended a lot quicker. But eventually, it leads to a mass exodus of Solar Auxilia just making a break for it.
Quite effective white scars, but it's also not them being these sort of saviors. They
No.
die. They do die to the there's large, but they have to they know they're sacrificing themselves because they're up against their equals in the Iron Warriors, and they are killed.
Yeah.
In case of certain elements, you say they're effective. They play to their strengths, but
they also, without them, as much as anything else, they're taking the blows that would hit a lot harder elsewhere.
Correct.
And trying to blunt the enemy quite a lot. Because you eventually
which describes their effect very effectively. But again, I'm impressed that it doesn't come across that it doesn't come across that the Iron Warriors are somehow lesser or incompetent or comedy villains in some ways. Like they're seriously dangerous.
The Iron Warriors really fit the Iron Warriors. I feel in this, it's not necessarily explicit, but it's like, cool, we'll put this many troops into there and we will win eventually. Okay, cool. Some white scars are there. Okay, cool. We will grind them down. It slows them down, but they're happy. They're fine. They're like, cool. We're doing what we need to do. And eventually, I mean, as I say, there's this mass attempted breakout of Solar Auxilia, which we see. You see it in the novels as well, but you eventually see just abandoned Leman Russes that run out of fuel because like their choice is run or die. And that's on top of the thousands upon thousands that have been told, we've got to go. Sell your lives dearly. Cheers. So, I think it's handled really well. And then right at the end, basically, there's like, oh no, there's more troops there. Okay, cool. These ones are wearing yellow armor, and there's some blue and white, titans and knights and stuff. And the next stage of the war can come.
Mm-hmm.
This book very much covers stage one of the war.
Yeah, it does set up a next bit, doesn't it? Yeah, coming next week.
Yeah, I mean, what it does show is that for all of that viral bombardment, like there's still going to be this drag out fight on Talon. So,
Yeah,
it says at the end, Talon died with nothing. Its death throes drawing in billions to the slaughter, and echoing outwards. Here had all the sins of the Imperium come home to roost. A revenant of the Great Crusade's most heinous crimes made manifest in a crucible of bloodshed and misery. And yeah, pretty fair to be honest.
yeah.
Like it's slowly everything's being dragged, and we know like so much material gets dragged into this fight on Talon, to the point where it might save Inuit.
Yeah.
Because like the Sons of Horus just don't have enough support to go and attack there and other stuff going on. So yeah, I enjoyed the story. I maybe forgot how focused the Great Slaughter was, and this is you do get a few pages on Legion armored warfare, uh, but yeah, focused on the Sapphire City, the very initial stage of the War of Talon. My only hope is we get some more going on. There's still plenty more for them to release, isn't there? So
There's plenty of units that are mentioned in this that you feel like had the release schedule allowed it, they'd have probably put them in here. Like you're saying, that coming next week or like in the next phase two, they even mention what is it, macro? Where is that bit about it? Macro destruction?
yeah,
The clades or whatever it is of the Iron Hands turning up. You think, whoa, that sounds cool as an alternative to a lost knight household that we're going to support Gryphonicus. The macro destruction phalanxes of Cerberus and Falchion super heavy tanks. Like, okay, where are they?
yeah, I'm very yeah,
Whirlwind Scorpiuses are mentioned
absolutely
alongside Arcus and Arquita units. There's quite a lot of armor that could come later. Fellblades I mentioned earlier that I
for
could
sure.
see coming on and happily sitting alongside this, even though there wasn't room to put it in here.
For sure. So moving on from that, they have a Warfront campaign listed, which is the basic campaign, which is in previous books. They also highlight a breakthrough campaign, which is essentially a tug of war kind of deal, where in this instance they suggest 3 players on each side, and you randomize who plays in which environment: route A, route B, route C. If loyalists win, you move the marker closer to the enemy stronghold, and vice versa. And once you have more than 50% of your markers on the enemy stronghold, you can play in a final game to try and win. Very simple system, which can be expanded out, though not too much, because it becomes really hard to get the majorities then across so many different games. But then you have this breach the stronghold mission as well, which looks interesting. Obviously, playing into uh, the stuff they've released, because you've got the termites would be really good in that. But you've got a wall with a gate in it, and the gate can be
Oh
destroyed, and you
yeah,
can fight through that. I was trying to remember the scenarios in the main book, because the scoring is end of each round is
it is.
VPs per objective. Um, seems to be fairly well done, like simple but effective. Then some extra specific rules for playing in the Northern Desolation as well, which is always good if you want to borrow them for your own
I really like the look of
campaigns.
this. the breakthrough campaign. I can see that being quite
I think,
good fun.
yeah, I wouldn't want more than 5 players.
Mm.
But it's a very simple kind of way to contest your games.
Yeah.
Some extra, like, again, some extra mission rules for depending on who's attacking, who's defending. Talking about campaign rosters, so having a 4,000 point campaign roster to choose your army list from whenever you play a 3,000 point game or a 2,500 point game. Victory boons again, little extra little rules if you've won, and they can be used. They can be again. There's a lot of framework in this. It's like this is how we use them. However, if you've got a campaign master, they could choose to award them to who they think deserves it. That kind of stuff. I don't know how much.
There's the fog of war section after that as well, which is quite cool.
Again, like I mean, for me, hidden setup's the best if you can do that. If you
Yeah.
can actually physically put something across the board to determine kind of where your troops are without the enemy seeing what you're doing. But again, more like spearhead assault rules, which are very much about getting into the opponent's territory with tanks. Cool. Again,
Different
more
game mode.
options on how to play the game. Yeah, not quite as different as previously with the Titans, but
Quite a
a
welcome one though,
change.
because I've watched quite a few battle reports for Legions getting back into it in a way, having not played. To my shame, I've not played it yet.
Right.
But something that a lot of those that I've seen a lot of the coverage and a lot of the battle reports in particular talk about, and I'm thinking specifically about tabletop standard here. They made the point that a lot of the missions, because of that scoring mechanism of scoring at the end of each turn, it means that you're in this sort of mad rush to just go and throw stuff at the various objectives, and you end up with this sort of bun fight. And if you take a lead, it's very hard for that lead to be overtaken. If you take a lead, you're quite likely to go on and win it. Which
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's an interesting thing. Whereas I think these spearhead missions would be rather different to that.
Yeah, I think I don't necessarily disagree. However, I do think we need to see a fuller army lists come out
Yes,
before we make a judgment based on that, because
agreed.
them and not just them, plenty of other people have talked about how powerful Titans are can be in the game. Well, now you've suddenly got a lot of stuff that can hurt a Titan, from a long way away. So the game changes. Like, yeah, Age of Sigmar is all about objectives, and we played the other day, and when I used to play my Sylvaneth, actually, my tactic always used to be get the points early and try and hold on. And I wonder if we get to that point with Legions. We might not, and it might be slightly skewed. I'm not dismissing it out of hand or anything like that. But the idea of a well balanced game, hopefully, will then be cool. I've jumped on the objectives, but I have to make sure I'm here for. I have to make sure I outscore him for 3 turns because the other 2 he's going to outscore me. You can get down to the minutiae on that one. And secondary objectives hopefully will help with that as well.
Well, and more missions, I think, as well. More missions. And
Yeah.
this being a slight variant game mode, I think it'll be quite fun, encouraging greater movement rather than rush to objectives and cap them, and then just end up with a fight in the middle. People who used to play X-Wing, that often would end up with it just all the ships would fly around for a second and then all slam into the middle and just be this little weird little tight dogfight. You didn't have the grand movement, which this game you kind of want. Just having parking lots in various parts of the thing doesn't add to the imagery.
Nope. I think in general, those games with grand movement are disappearing because there seems to be this. Maybe it's backed up by sales, but you look at the old world compared to old Warhammer, and there's movement, but it's a lot of just stuff fighting each other for quite a while. They don't want stuff running away. They don't want. Yeah, I don't know. That's
No.
maybe a different
Well, we'll
thing.
see how the game. We're into a slightly different
Yeah.
model with this game in particular, where it's growing. These are not by any means full army lists.
No.
They're considerably further on than where it was at launch, but it's kind of growing at a slower pace than you
Sure.
might see elsewhere. So it'll be interesting to see how this grows. But that was just an interesting observation. So a
Yeah.
welcome addition of different variant game modes and missions and secondary
Well, yeah,
objectives, as we were saying.
and and lots of options. Again, battle honors here to put into your campaign. Formations of legend. So were these?
Very exciting, those, yeah.
Yeah. So like the first one is the Iron Hand Seeker Killer Clave Ultor, which you have to buy as standard detachment of 4 Legion Sicarans, 4 Legion Sicarans, 4 Legion Sicarans. Sorry, four sabers, then an expanded detachment for plus 270 points, 4 Sicarans, 4 sabers, and they have the macro extinction targeting protocols special rule everything within that detachment, but you can't change it. It is that you have the option of those added bits, and that's it. There's one for the Iron Warriors as well, which is all Terminators basically, and Legion Terminators from this formation increase their CAF by 2 anytime they disembark from a Spartan model in the formation. It's pretty good. And there's an Alpha Legion 1 here as well, Harrow Group, Outflank and Scout, and then there's a couple of Solar Auxilia. So
the Alpha Legion one is massive. I was quite
oh yes,
surprised at that. The
930
amount of
points for the most for the
it's
big.
massive, and the amount of stuff that you need to go and buy to make that detachment is huge. I mean, you could argue that's true of the Iron Warriors one as well, but I mean, and that's quite big as well when that's
Well,
upgraded to 800 points.
the Siegebreaker, the Galabed Oathsworn Traitor Siegebreaker one is 950 altogether. 3 Storm Swords, 4 Basilisks, 4 Medusas, 3 Storm Swords, and 4 Basilisks. Yeah, but it's cool. Nice to see formations of legend. Sometimes I don't necessarily use them outside of playing with your mates because they can be a bit funny like that. And then we get new formations. So Spearhead Assault. Yeah, just different ways of taking stuff, isn't it? Sometimes I'm looking for the special rules on these when there aren't any. It's just okay. It's a way of forming your army, isn't it? The
It
Subterranean
is. I
Assault.
mean, but it does create some quite interesting. I mean, there's quite a lot of flexibility in the formations already, but it is surprising when you just try and do one thing. Oh, hang on, no, I can't do that, or actually, I can't fit that in because I've had to take this, that, X, Y, or Z. These do provide some interesting variations on a theme. I thought the heavy assault one's quite cool.
Absolutely, I like them both. I think it's just the way the different games are playing with how you build your army now is quite interesting. Essentially, Age of Sigmar's gone to a similar system like this, where you buy a detachment or whatever they're calling it, and you can have one of these people as your hero for that detachment, and then you can have 0 to 1 of these, or 0 to 2 of these, or what have you. Very similar kind of system to this, in where the way they're making you build your army.
I don't quite understand why the Solar Auxilia Lehman Russ Spearhead exists when the Armored Company one exists. I mean, it does mean you don't have to take a heavy tank. You can just take all Lehman Russ battle tanks. So that's it. But
That's
it's
the
quite
whole
a
point,
small
right?
reason. Must be.
Someone just
that
wants
seems
to take
quite a niche requirement.
No, I don't know. I think that's a classic.
Yeah.
That's a classic. All I want to do is take Lehman Russ. Whole army of Lehman Russ. I think people have wanted to do that in 40k as well as Epic. But yeah.
The super heavy detachment's cool. Well, more specifically the Titan Hunter Company. That's cool.
Yeah, they're first fire orders become accurate. I mean, they're going to be expensive, aren't they? So let's have a little look, actually.
I do love. Last thing I'll say about those is I do love those little color plates they do of the forces.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Where they do all the little painted tanks and all the little painted color plates of tanks and troopers all rained up there. I think I'd really love that little organizational thing. But
So
yeah,
we've got all
the actual units,
all the different Rust squadrons there. Suddenly we're seeing with shadow swords. Here we go. 140 points for one shadow sword. The volcano cannon is 70 inches, 3 up to hit, one shot, -4. Engine killer 2. Yeah. Once people can start buying these, and you can have 3 of them in a unit for 400 points. Like, they are going to murderize stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, really are. And then if you want, again, buildings is a problem for people. Well, the siege cannon at 30 inches on the
That
storm
is
sword
good.
isn't bad,
Yeah.
is it? Like,
There's nothing else with Demolisher of that kind of range. That
no.
30-inch range where you're able to reach out and do that. It's only one dice, but still, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's only 100 points. Like, it's not extortionate. So, with a 2+ save and 2 wounds.
Yeah.
So, and it's got less cannons on it and everything else. So,
well, and it's got a lot of point defense on it as well.
Yeah.
When you start having squadrons of 3.
Yeah, it's opening up. I say the game style, the play style, which is cool. And then for the Marines, you've got so the termites obviously bringing another way of getting out there and doing things, and they can quake units around them, which is cool. The sabers, 4 of them for 120 points, movement 11 with 12 or 16-inch guns. It's not bad. They're going to die, but hey, shoot my little dudes, fine. That kind of thing. And then quite like the Arcus. Yeah.
The Arcus is almost
fire.
Yeah, I mean, it's so good. When you think how important air, particularly anti-air against the solar, is.
Only
Well,
a
again,
5
all
up to
air is
hit
effective.
with the
Yeah, but
Skyfire.
re-rolling with tracking.
With re-rolling with tracking, exactly, in AP2. So yeah, it's there's I'm not going to sit here and give you like, wow, this book's amazing, tremendous stuff.
No, but the Arcus is very good. I think
There's
it's going to be a very good choice. It's more expensive than a regular Sakara, so you pay your points for it. But I mean, even having the anti-tank option,
only 5
anti-tank
points.
-2, yeah, but an anti-tank -2 is pretty good for Marines as well, albeit 16-inch range, not reaching out as far as las cannons, but it's pretty good.
Yeah,
Las cannons are only -1 actually. Yeah,
attachment size 2, you can get up to 6 of them for 335. Potentially scary prospect.
What do the sabers have neutron blasters? They do, don't they?
Yeah, so the neutron blaster is 12 inches, 1 dice 4 up to hit, -3 anti-tank shock pulse.
Okay, so you could shut things down.
Yeah. Again, for
Or rather,
120 points
not deny
for 4
their
of them.
weapons. Yeah, that could be quite good. But 12-inch range is tight, but they're quick at 11. Yeah.
But if you can fit them into something which can outflank or what have you, or pushing up the board, like there's options. But at the end of the day, there's 4 data sheets for Marines and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the solar, and then battle tank detachments for the start is added on as well, so not full, but to allow you to do that. There are going to be people who question the value of the book, I think, and I don't blame them. I think it's well done. I think it's probably worth it. Well, no, I think it is worth it. I think you have to accept with a game like this that this is the way they're going to fund it.
Yeah.
Is it, would I want it cheaper? Yes. Am I that? It's not a cheap game to get into. I think you do just have to accept that. But
Battle
I mean,
Forces helped.
Battle Forces helped, and the like again things like the Shadow Swords, they're going to eat up points.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
they
I
are
found
going to
that
do that.
with putting together these lists to try and work towards. You start putting infantry detachments and things together, and you just never seem to use up the points. You kind of you're using up the models, and you think, oh my god, that's only a few hundred points. It's not. How many more of these have I got to add? Then you start adding in tanks, and suddenly the points disappear.
I mean,
The tank squadrons and things just.
yeah,
I mean, you put in 4 Kratos, right? Your points disappear very quickly and stuff.
it'll
With
be
tanks
interesting
in
to see
particular.
with whether whether all infantry can just overpower with wounds
Hmm.
some of the bigger armies, and that'll be interesting to see how that balance shakes out. Um, I just feel I think there are certain I think the way the book's written, I think the problem with Specialist Design Studio is old world this, AT to a lesser extent. Um, I almost want the second edition of the game really early because
Hmm.
I'm like, just, I think each of those games has things that are not glaring, but have come to light very quickly in either their organisation or not complexity, but kind of number of how the rules are looked up and put upon each other. That
Hmm.
even with Heresy, actually, it's like, oh, a second edition of this could be really good.
Hmm.
Like to go and look at what is causing people issues. You know, how can they tidy up artificer armor, and how can you address dreadnoughts, and I think that speaks, in a weird way, that speaks well of the games in that I'm not talking about a complete rewrite. Like,
Hmm.
it seems like the core of the game is there for each of the systems, but with some tidying up and some rethinking how you do things could be very, very good.
Yes.
But we're very early into them. I'm not expecting it anytime soon, obviously.
No.
Um,
No, I don't think so. But it would also have the benefit of it all kind of being out there. You're
yeah,
having the models out there to support it, whereas this feels. I mean, this is having to build
yes.
a library, having to build a model offering that just doesn't exist in any way, because it's a whole new sort of scale and offering. Really, I mean, you can't compare with what was out there before. Not least of which the setting is different. So yeah, there's a long way to go. Um, these help certainly. I think probably the impact of the Great Slaughter was more significant because it added things that just here you're getting more with the almost certain exception of the shadow swords. You're getting more of things that were already there. I mean, I'm looking at the Lehman Russ variants, for example, things which I think plays into your point where some people maybe question the value of this. Whereas the Great Slaughter added things that were quite dramatically different and it gave you different options, including the formations. Whereas here, the formations are slight variants on things that you can already do. So I don't think it'll have quite the same impact that the Great Slaughter had. However,
No,
there is cool stuff in here.
I kind of read through parts of it,
Hmm.
but it did feel well written. It did feel like
Oh yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
um, the story was serious. Like, you know, sometimes it can feel a little bit like, oh, really? Uh, and it
does
felt
this matter?
grim.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you know, overall, I think it's, it's. I think the biggest complaints will be the format of what you're purchasing,
yeah,
which you know isn't always in the hands of the people who are making it. There's things to go by, and there's you know GW do have a. I think it's easy. Yeah, GW make a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but GW also have a lot of not unseen costs. Like there's a lot of costs outside of production and writing and everything else as well. They're obviously doing very well, but I don't necessarily have an issue with most of their pricing. There are the odd things.
Yeah,
Some of the metal old world miniatures, I get it. You don't want people getting metal models out of molds anymore,
yeah.
but I'm not paying, that amount of
Some
money for.
some character models start to
Yeah,
push even
yeah,
frequent flyers like ourselves a bit. You're
yeah.
like, yeah, okay, you sure? I mean, you're in a rush to do that. I mean, I'm talking really plastic characters which seem to be priced purely because they are characters, which rather than being reflective of the extra design focus or
It's
otherwise.
really
But
annoying. I went up to Warhammer World on Thursday.
did you?
Popped
Yeah.
in because I went to the cricket on the Friday, and popped into Warhammer World and had a little look around and walked around the miniatures hall. And there's some cool new stuff in there, but once you've been so many times, like unless they have a big refresh, it's like £8.50. Bring me an open day where I can go for free, that kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, and then I was like, oh, I don't want to buy anything, but actually, that Traitor Champion model, I still want him.
I
Like
went to that. Yeah, I went looking for that when I went up.
I will allow myself that one model. Oh no, he's still out.
Yeah,
Stock.
yeah.
Bye. But there we go.
There was quite a
What
few
can
like
you
that
do?
when I got there. There was quite the apothecaries were all out. The Traitor
Yeah.
Champion was tempting. I wonder. I mean, it would have been interesting to see if the new ones were in. Axeman and all the guys who came out with him. Hibu Khan and Tybalt Mar. I don't know how popular those are. I think they've possibly gone out of stock. I'm not sure. I haven't checked in on that recently. But yeah, you do see that being popular. But those are, even when you might weaken, can be hard to get hold of some of those types of models.
Hey, that's
Not
not.
such a big deal with Legion. No.
Well, yeah. We'll see how it goes, I suppose. Um,
Would you recommend the book?
yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit light in terms of, but as I say, I think it's a little bit light in terms of rules for models. I think the campaign system looks simple, but there's stuff there you can steal and use for other stuff. But overall, I think it's a decent book. I think it's, as I say, I think the negatives are more around probably the way it has to be produced.
Hmm.
And what has to be put in there. I wanted more than just the initial battle, but having looked at it, that's what it offers you. So
Hmm.
is what it is.
I
You?
think I would. I think I would. Um, because I really wanted to know more about Talon, so I'm seeing it more of as a setting book, as a source book,
Yeah.
with the definite benefit of units that I would want to have as well. Units I've been looking forward to. The primary thing is I want to know more about Talon. The secondary thing is the units. The campaign probably third, because I just don't have the time or the energies, I suppose, to put into putting together a campaign and having the regular opponents who would be able to do that. But for those things I wanted from the book, it does them very well. Therefore, I would say it is. I would recommend it. I think we're acknowledging though that there might be some elements of looking at. I think that's less so. I'm less cautious about that than I was about, say, the Exemplary Battles book, where you could see it coming that people were going to have a difference of opinion or a strong opinion whether they think it wasn't worth it or otherwise. I don't think that's as true here, but I think as you say, I think there's a chance that some people will see it that way. But overall, it's a recommendation from me.
At the end of the day, though, those people who don't see the value in it, like they're going to end up finding the rules, those data sheets,
Yeah.
and and they'll be happy because I suppose there is that argument of if you play the game just in a non-campaign manner,
Mm.
what are you getting from this book? You're getting 14 data sheets and a couple of other legendary unit data sheets. So at that point, all these books are a bit of a why am I bothering
Yeah.
spending that much money? So they're never going to be satisfied in that respect.
No.
But yeah, hey, and they should know that going in. They should be aware of what's happening. So.
Yeah.
Cool, awesome. Let's leave that there then.
Yeah, that sounds. I think that's covered everything. I don't think we can get into. I think we go any more, we just repeat ourselves.
Yeah,
So
indeed.
yeah, but I think we covered that well.
Awesome. I'll see you soon then, mate.
See you soon.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of another episode of the Imperial Truth. Thank you very much for listening. A little bit of a short show, trying to get it out in time. Got some plans for when we get back. Let's see how they go. Hey, obviously this is released a little bit later as well to coincide with when the NDAs drop. Mechanicum box looks super cool. Seen a lot of excitement about it, which is really good. And looking forward to seeing what you guys do with it as well. So if you do pick it up, then please feel free to send us pictures, post on the Facebook group, or contact us through Twitter, tag us in a post, all that stuff. And if you're picking up the book, the Tallarn book, then let us know what you think on that one as well. Moving forwards, I'm at Greetings from the Warp, their event in September, as we said. I'll have something for that, so if you're there, please feel free to come say hi. Be good to see some people. Obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about that. That'll be on the October episode. What I might do is ask for some questions for next episode, because getting back best part of halfway through the month, and it's always a bit mad coming back from a long time away, so yeah, maybe we'll put the call out, but you get the call first. That if you have any questions, then please, we might do an episode based on that. Why not? It's all a bit fun, isn't it? So yeah, I think that's about it. I'm not 100% sure. Oh, well, you can feedback anyway, even if it's not questions. You can feedback on the show. You can give us questions anytime, to be honest. You can give us show topics. You can just comment on where you think we were wrong. All of that usual stuff at the Imperial Truth. Sorry, at Imperial_Truth on Twitter. Search for Imperial Truth on Facebook. Greg at the Imperial Truth is the email, and they're all in the show notes. And there's links to that on the Twitter. I'm gonna have to find a better way to share that information, but it's up and around, so you can find those links on our link tree as well. If you like what we do, and if you want to support us to help keep the lights on and keep those kind of things going, then we have a Patreon, very much a tip jar, and we're very thankful to anyone that puts into that. If you want to help us going and you don't feel that's appropriate, absolutely fine. I get it completely. No problems with that. If you want to tell a friend about us, that's wonderful. If you want to say, hey, this show's been particularly good, not every show will be for everyone either. We appreciate that. So, yeah. While I'm away, I do have a few jobs to do. So, in terms of the show, so feel free to, as they get the ideas in, because there are a few things in the background working. We're waiting for people to get back to us and stuff like that. But when I say what you guys, this show goes out, and the listener is a major part of the show. At the end of the day, we might not have as much interaction as some shows do. The nature of it being audio only and that kind of thing. But you guys can help make the show at the end of the day. So yeah, please feel free to do that. But I think we'll leave that there. So until next time, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.